If 2023 is being characterized by anything, it's more of the same from 2022. Inflation, irresponsible political leaders making things worse, economic uncertainty, prices going up, economic forecasts looking bad, recession here already, even if the politicians don't want to admit it. And one of the things on everyone's mind is how to save money. And when I started this channel back in May of 2022, I did fairly regular series on how to save money, but after a while you drift away from that kind of content simply because you talked about as much as you can. But today we're going to revisit it. We're going to talk about one thing that does really kind of bug me in the carnivore world, and that we treat the carnivore diet, at least many people do, as the ribeye steak diet. The ribeye steak is not the most expensive cut of steak, but it's pretty close. Typically, beef tenderloin is more expensive than the ribeye, and if you've ever had tenderloin, you know why. It's a delightful cut, even if it's extraordinarily lean. It is a pleasure to eat. It is what is used the core ingredient for the filet mignon. Trimmed a certain way, you take the tenderloin, which is already magnificent, and you elevate it, to use the language of the culinary world, into just something practically magical. But the ribeye is pretty high up there too. It's one of the most expensive cuts of steak. And people treat the diet as if it's the ribeye steak diet. I sometimes will joke about the cult of the ribeye because you'll sometimes see, like I've seen videos and I've made videos where I rank my favorite cuts of steak that are not the ribeye. And people will respond, my favorite five are ribeye, 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 ribeye. Well, okay, that's great. But if we talk about this way of eating as if it's just eat ribeye steaks and pretty much nothing else, in 2023, you're going to push a lot of people away. So the number one way you can save money is to understand that the easiest thing in the world you can do is to add animal fat to what you're eating. You can actually buy leaner cuts of steak, which may not be as delightful to eat, but can be, with proper preparation, pretty good, and you can easily add animal fat to whatever level of fat you need for your particular way of doing carnivore to achieve the goals you need, to have the same result as if you ate the 2 pounds of ribeye a day. So what are some other cuts? Well, Walmart has this eye of round steak. It is not a great cut. It usually has this little fat ring on the outside, but otherwise it is extraordinarily lean. It's also super cheap. Super cheap. Sometimes they have the whole eye of round roast, which you can prepare like a brisket, by the way. I've done that before, and it's actually a much tastier way to eat it than frying it like a steak. And that cut or sirloins or anything that's typically cheaper and leaner, you can add butter to, egg yolks, which are delightful on steak. If you've never put a raw egg yolk on a steak, get a good raw egg yolk and put it on there. And if you can do the whole egg, just put the whole egg on there. I'm allergic to egg whites, so I can't have them. But it's almost like a match made in heaven. It takes steak and eggs, the classic American decadent breakfast, and elevates that even more. But the next obvious option you can do is go to ground beef. I know some people out there are counter-signaling ground beef right now, saying that you're pre-chewing your meat and it's bad for your health because your jaw muscles aren't getting a workout or something. I don't know. All I know is there are plenty of carnivores in this world who, on a budget, eat nothing but 80% or fattier ground beef. That's all they eat, and they do just fine. And for them, eating is just a thing they do when their body tells them they need extra food. They've completely broken that sort of disordered way our culture has in the modern world of treating every meal like it's a feast. You can do that. You can get 73% lean ground beef. I've heard of fattier ground beef than the 73 lean, and that stuff is cheap. You can often find 73% lean ground beef for $2.99 a pound. I've seen it on sale for $1.99 a pound. If you're eating 2 pounds a day, 2.5 pounds a day of that, you're eating for $8 a day. That's in 2023. That's a pretty good deal. I would take it. Make sure you get your salt. Don't be afraid of the cheaper cuts. And don't let the naysayers tell you that you're not doing carnivore right if you're not eating the luxury cut of steak, the Scotch fillet, the ribeye, whatever you call it, wherever you're seeing this, because that's nonsense. This is not supposed to be a diet for people with fat wallets. This is supposed to be the proper way of eating, the proper human diet. And it should be accessible to anybody who wants to do it and decides voluntarily to do it for themselves. And it should be available, but our own thinking, where we glom onto the best cut of ribeyes, the best steaks, the best, the best cuts, and then make that as if it's the only thing you should eat. Right now, to give you an idea, I have in my pellet grill, I am smoking 2 small chuck roasts. They total about 4.5 pounds. They come from the cow that I bought last fall from a local rancher. I am going to make a cheap version of chopped brisket. Cheap being relative, because the cost of brisket, if you were to buy it at the grocery store, during the summer is typically $2.99 a pound. This time of year is $4.99 a pound typically, although this year we're expecting 20% increase on beef price. That's probably going to be $5.99 a pound, or $4 a pound is the normal price for brisket, which is going to be very annoying. But brisket can be expensive anyway because it is a huge cut. They don't usually come in small cuts unless you buy the pre-separated ones. If you're trying to make barbecue brisket, the pre-separated ones are probably not what you want to do. They're a lot harder to cook. But I'm doing chuck roast because they're, by comparison, are cheap because they're much smaller. Each one of the ones I have is about 2 pounds. One's 2.3 pounds, and the other's about 2.5 pounds, I think. And they're in my smoker right now. They are lightly seasoned with salt and, yes, black pepper. I know, black pepper, the devil. I can handle black pepper fine, and I'm just doing meal prep for the week. I'm going to take those things. I'll have a little bit today when they're done, and then I'm going to chop the rest. You ever notice at a barbecue restaurant, chopped brisket is a super expensive thing? Often $20 for a pound of it. This is going to cost me, I don't know, actually probably about $20 for 4 pounds of it, 5 pounds. That's a way better deal, and I can get several meals out of that. And it's still not the cheapest because I paid $4.50 a pound for it as part of my whole cow. But you can find chuck roast sometimes marked down at the store. You can. This is the next part. How do you save money? You shop the sales. You go at the right time of day. Most grocery stores, within about an hour of opening in the morning, unless it's a 24-hour store, then you just kind of got to figure out when they do this. It's usually in the morning. The meat department guy is going to come out and mark down a bunch of the meat from the day before. Some meat you should stay away from when they do that. I do not recommend buying marked down chicken. Years ago, I had just too many bad experiences too quickly for me to be willing to do that again. But marked down beef, you can, as long as it looks good and it smells fine, you can save 25% off the meat cost. Now, some days there will be more there than others. I have noticed, just anecdotally, that Monday mornings are like the worst day of the week to find the marked down meat. And why is that? It's simple. Because the busiest shopping days of the week are Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those mornings, or the mornings thereafter, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, are going to have the lightest amount of marked down meats, typically. Walmart, the markdown meat looks like it goes out in the 7 or 8 o'clock hour. I remember Safeway, when I had a Safeway near me, was in the 8 o'clock hour. The same with Kroger. Sam's Club, if you have a presidential level membership or the executive membership, I don't remember what they call it, but they open their doors at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that's when they open, theirs is out. And I've done videos on that, and I will tell you right now, the savings over the course of the year from Sam's Club on markdown meat will by itself pay for your membership, on top of the better price for gas you get at Sam's Club gas stations. Those are some basic tips on how to save money. Don't be afraid of cheaper cuts. Don't be afraid of markdown meat. Buy larger cuts to meal prep. Learn how to cook things in unusual ways. Get a crock pot. Crock pot shredded chuck roast, I hear, is pretty good. I prefer to, smoke most of my large cuts of meat, and I even do that with steaks. But I've got, chuck roasts right now. That's going to be making the poor man's brisket. It's going to be great. Don't be afraid of these things. And ground beef can be your friend. What are some other money-saving tips you have, aside from buying a full cow like I did at $4.50 a pound, which on balance is a fantastic price? But what are some other money-saving tips that you have? Let me know in the comments, please. And like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help, as does sharing this on social media. That helps a lot, too. I'm Anthony Stine, the Practical Carnivore, and thanks for tuning in.